This video looks at how classical approaches to organizations, especially the machine metaphor, play out in organizations today and how these approaches affect communication within the organization. For this study, we are taking a closer look at how classical approaches play out in restaurants. First, we'll be taking a look at Uno Chicago Grill, a casual dining chain restaurant with 150 locations in 6 countries. Later, we will take a step inside Victor Cafe, a one-of-a-kind dining experience in the heart of South Philadelphia. According to Catherine Miller's Organizational Communication Approaches and Processes, the machine metaphor looks at disparate objects that organizations are like. It may seem like common sense, but essentially we are looking at the organization as a machine. In order for a machine to work properly, 4 aspects are critical: specialization, standardization, replaceability, and predictability. Specialization, or division of labor, refers to the fact that each person has a specific set of tasks to complete in order for the organization to run smoothly. In a household, it may look like this. Standardization and replaceability are closely linked. Standardization refers to the fact that parts in one machine are the same as those in a similar machine, and therefore can be easily replaced. One example is a dishwasher pump.
Lift out the old circulation motor and pump assembly. Install the new circulation motor and pump.
Lastly, machines are predictable. Machine-like organizations run according to a set of rules and standards. Only a finite number of things can go wrong, and the same outcome is expected each time, like a McDonald's Big Mac. In doing my research on Uno Chicago Grill and Victor Cafe, I focus on 3 areas. First, the atmosphere and dining experience. This includes how servers talk to the customers, the focus on customer experience, and the restaurant's decor. Second, I looked at the way in which management determines the variety of food options on the menu and how the menu and food are prepared. Lastly, I examined roles and cross-training of skills within the restaurant. My hypothesis is that the corporate chain restaurant, Uno Chicago Grill, will be more machine-like than Victor Cafe in all 3 of the areas we just discussed. Therefore, I believe that communication at Uno's will have a more top-down approach, and communication at Victor Cafe will be more horizontal and go beyond task-related conversation. My dining experiences at Uno Chicago Grill and Victor Cafe were very different. My interactions with the Uno Chicago staff were very scripted.
Leave it help, please. Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
However, my experience at Victor Cafe was a bit more personal and intimate.
Oh, welcome to Il Cantore. So nice to see you again.
Well, actually, this is our first time here.
Oh, signor, bellissimo. This is a special night. Okay.
If you have been in multiple Uno's restaurants, you likely noticed that the decor and setup of the tables is very similar in each one. Uno's manager Dan Fleck told me that all of the pieces are sent from the corporate office to maintain a cohesive look throughout the Uno's chain.
Most of our stores had a basic design built to emulate a Chicago warehouse type idea, just to incorporate the whole Chicago, Uno Chicago Grill mentality into the store.
In contrast, the decor of Victor Cafe is very original and unique. Before becoming a restaurant in 1933, Victor Cafe was the RCA Victor Gramophone Shop, where people would gather to sip espresso and listen to newly recorded opera arias, symphonies, and popular music of the day. The decor in Victor Cafe today includes memorabilia and signed pictures of many musicians and visitors to the gramophone shop of the early 1900s. The overall focus on customer experience at each restaurant was very different. The staff at Uno's has a regimented way of serving in order to turn each table quickly. For example, giving me the check when they brought me my meal. However, Mr. Fleck said that since the recession in 2008, the chain has started to shift its focus from numbers to customer hospitality.
Being brought up in the management program here, we all decided that costs and numbers was what the restaurants were driven by. And when we saw the economy kind of go under a little bit, we started rolling more to the fact that hospitality and ensuring guest experience actually became our number 1 focus.
Victor's, on the other hand, is very much a unique and entertaining dining experience. In addition to sitting in a building with so much history, Victor's also served as Adrian's restaurant in the Rocky movies, Restaurant goers were treated to beautiful live opera performances. According to Mr. Fleck, Uno's menu is determined by the corporate office with little to no room for variation by the individual restaurants. Uno's receives food from distributors that are locked into long-term, fixed pricing contracts in order to keep costs consistent.
Fluctuation with prices, we're locked in with produce prices and like cheese prices and chicken prices for year contracts because we have 9 stores with a guaranteed volume that we're going to buy from these people.
Mr. Fleck also says that each Uno's dish must be prepared or expoed a certain way before it leaves the kitchen. He mentions that the main focus is getting the food out on time as opposed to how it is cooked. Each course also has a specific time limit for it to be served after it is ordered.
I have a guaranteed lunch in 10 minutes, and it says guaranteed on the menu. And dinner time, entrees are 18 minutes. And honestly, that's probably one of the biggest things I had a difference between independent restaurant and a corporate restaurant is the kitchen was driven by the front of the house. Like you had a certain ticket time in corporate. Like you want lunches out in 10 minutes, you want dinners out in 18 minutes, you want checks on the table in 10 minutes, you want this. Like everything's on a time frame.
Daryl Williams, the manager of Victor Cafe, says that the kitchen strives to have entrees served within 30 minutes, but because it's a small establishment, that is not always possible. In addition, he mentions that the menu is updated weekly based on dishes the chef believes will add flair to the menu.
My general manager's brother is a chef, and he changes the menu. I mean, we have changes to the menu almost weekly just to sort of keep things, keep things interesting. Our staples stay the same, but we always offer something, something different.
While the number of people working in each restaurant varies, Uno's employees are in more specialized roles, including host or hostess, server, bartender, line cook, salad maker, food expediter, food runner, busser, and manager. Workers are mostly tied into one specialized role, but Mr. Fleck says Uno's does allow workers to cross-train in order to increase their skill set. Through cross-training, workers become less standardized and replaceable than if they only had one skill. Victor Cafe employees play multiple roles. For example, Mr. Williams is a maitre d', manager, as well as a performer. In addition to serving, the waiters, waitresses, and bartenders are also food runners and performers. Lastly, the 2 chefs are responsible for all of the cooking and expediting. Mr. Williams, who started performing at Victor's when he was just 16 years old, was cross-trained through various roles at the restaurant before becoming manager.
I started here as a singer. I was a busser, and I moved up to wait. I bartended, I hosted, I worked in the office. I did pretty much everything but cook on the hotline.
In coming back to my original hypothesis that Uno's would be more machine-like in all 3 of the areas we discussed, customer experience, menu and food preparation, as well as roles, I was mostly correct. However, we did learn that Uno's is trying to shift focus from numbers and turning tables to ensuring a personal dining experience. In addition, cross-training does occur in order to increase the skill set of the staff. Despite this, communication in the 2 organizations is still very different. Miller mentions 3 types of communication flows within an organization, but mentions that vertical flow is most prevalent in machine-like organizations. This rings true for Uno's. Mr. Fleck told me that a decision as small as changing the beer list can take 6 months, as it must be communicated up the corporate chain for approval and then back down before it can be implemented. He also mentions that there are specific channels in which stores must use to communicate with the corporate office. However, there is also a second communication dynamic at play within the Uno's organization. While communication between the stores and corporate is very vertical and formal, communication between workers and managers within an individual restaurant is more open and horizontal. Workers and managers may carry on social conversation, but corporate managers would likely not engage in this type of communication with store workers. Mr. Williams told me the communication at Victor's between workers and management is free-flowing and goes beyond task-related information. Whereas Uno's has a distinct multi-level hierarchy in which communication travels, Victor's is much more horizontal. It also helps that all of Victor's employees work together under the same roof. An important takeaway from this study is that the machine metaphor is still alive in organizations today, especially restaurants. Even though Victor Cafe is less machine-like than Uno's in many ways, maintaining some level of order and predictability is important to be successful in an industry where the daily business volume is unpredictable.